everybody, it's Sarah, and today I am back with another review that I not that I filmed in June. That's for a book that I read in June. And the book is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This book is just like S.T. Gibson's first, I don't think it was their first book actually. I think it's just the first that kind of like was hyped up. But like, just like S.T. Gibson's most well-known book, A Dowry in Blood, this one is queer vampires. And this one is, I hesitate even saying inspired by Carmilla, but it takes certain inspirations from the story of Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, which arguably is one of the first gay vampires. It's like lesbian vampires, but in the 19th century. It's there's a lot of queer yearning in the original Carmilla, but like not necessarily in a positive way, obviously. An Education in Malice follows Laura, and Laura is a girl who to the outside seems very innocent, and she goes to this new college, which is St. Perpetua's College, and she wants to go there because there's like an amazing poetry and like lyric department. And once she is there, she is taken under the wing of the resident poetry teacher, who is Mrs. or Professor de la Fontaine. There's also another student who has been taken under the wing of de la Fontaine, whose name is Carmilla. And Laura kind of low-key becomes obsessed with Carmilla, and the two of them kind of develop a rivalry. And by the way, this book, while most often the tagline is like kind of along the lines of Carmilla, more obviously I think this is very inspired by The Secret History as well as Dead Poet Society a little bit as well. So you have the dark academia vibes more so. There's not that much commentary on academia as a whole, it's more so dark academia vibes, and this kind of cohort of people under the wing of this very prolific professor. And so as Carmilla and Laura get closer, Laura also discovers some things about de la Fontaine, and they kind of get wrapped up in witchcraft and ancient vampires, etc. So what did I think about this book? First, let's get the negatives out of the way. Not necessarily a negative, however, for me personally, I remember a lot of the promotional stuff that I saw for this talking about this being polyamorous, where I wouldn't necessarily agree, because while yes, there is certain sexual tensions and a very toxic codependence between de la Fontaine and her students, especially Carmilla and Laura, that relationship stays toxic but never becomes explicitly romantic. And I also don't think that's a spoiler, because it's not really hinted at that strongly that it will ever turn romantic. So the main romance that you have is between Carmilla and Laura. Second, I think I would have enjoyed this book more if it had either leaned more into Carmilla, or if it had just been like, okay, you know, we're taking some of the names from Carmilla because it's a vampire novel and it's nice Easter eggs for those who are familiar with the original story, but that's it. Because I don't really see any inspiration from the original Carmilla in this one, aside from the fact that you have two characters named Laura and Camilla, which, another nice Easter egg, Laura in this one is called Laura Sheridan, and obviously Sheridan Le Fanu was the author of Carmilla. Anyway, this one, like, it wasn't that dynamics were replicated, it wasn't that dynamics were set up and then subverted from the original Carmilla, aside from two characters being named Carmilla and Laura, and the two having queer yearning for each other. There wasn't really anything else that reminded me of the original Carmilla. So yeah, just be aware of that in terms of expectations, I guess, if you're a little bit like me, because I'm quite picky with how close a book has to be to call itself a retelling, reimagining, or even inspired by. So yeah, that was not that much for me. I also remember I didn't really particularly enjoy the ending all that much. I just don't remember right now what my problem was with it anymore. However, while I still gave this 4 stars, the biggest problem isn't even something that has to do with this book, to be honest, but more so something that has to do with A Dowry of Blood. Because something that will make me love a book is if it's experimental, if it's different, etc, etc. And A Dowry of Blood was such a breath of fresh air. You have second-person narration, which is completely different, obviously. You have this exploration of this very toxic relationship. And so it's just something different. Whereas this one, while it's not bad, in comparison felt just very, very standard and run-of-the-mill. And so even though it doesn't have anything to do with this book because of the expectations I had for the author because of A Dowry of Blood, I was just a little bit, it felt like I was a little bit let down. And then the last thing that I also forgot was that this is written once again in 2 POVs, first person narration. And the first time we switched from Laura to Camilla, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I will actually like this because Camilla's voice sounds quite different. However, with the second chapter that we got for Camilla, it was already like, okay, Laura and Camilla sound very similar in their voices. So yeah, but I just wish authors would stop doing it, to be honest. Like, I hate it. Anyway, now as to the positive stuff. I overall still really enjoyed it. Despite my qualms I have about 2-person narration, first-person narration, I love S.T. Gibson's writing. I think they are an amazing author. They have really beautiful writing. They have a really good use of language that I highly, highly enjoy. So if you enjoy this as well, I think you'll be all about that. Then the next thing I really appreciated was Laura as a main character, because Laura is set up as a very mousy, timid character. So very standard in that way. However, this type of character gets subverted in that, at least when it comes to her sexuality, Laura is quite confident and she is the more dominant person within the relationship between her and Carmilla, and that is set up quite quickly, where it's like, yes, Laura as a person generally maybe doesn't have 100% confidence yet to put herself out there. She has grown up quite protected, etc. However, she grows into herself and she gains the confidence to do the things that she desires to do to a certain point. So I just also found the subversion of the dynamic between Carmilla and Laura very interesting, because usually Carmilla is the type of character, at least to the outside, who would be the more dominant person in the relationship. However, within this story, she isn't. In general, once again, the relationship dynamics also, we also saw that in A Dowry of Blood, the relationship dynamics is where S.T. Gibson really shines. I love the toxic codependence between especially Carmilla and De La Fontaine, and also how that dynamic changes as soon as Laura steps into it and into the relationship, where on the one hand Laura is caught into it, but also the presence of Laura makes it possible to kind of at least break up the toxic codependence between the professor and the student a little bit. So I just love that. I did think that while the kind of secondary plot of witchcraft added a little bit, it wasn't that necessary for the story. It just added a little bit of suspension, but it was very much in the background, and you know, it only really came into it, I think, probably about halfway in the story, and then some things happened and then it was over. And I think it was well done that we didn't shift focus onto that other plot line, because again, it wasn't really necessary. The relationships, the dynamics were really front and center in the story, and that's where S.T. Gibson shines. So yeah. But overall, I would say if you're looking for a like dark, I'm not gonna say dark romance, but like toxic relationship, fantasy, romance, dark academia vibes type story. I definitely think this is a book that a lot of people will enjoy, especially if you're more of a romance reader than I am. But yeah, overall, I would recommend this. Obviously, I gave it 4 stars. And yeah, with that, I'm already done with my review. I don't have that much more to say about this book. If you have also read this book and you think differently than me, tell me in the comments down below. Also, if you agree with me, still tell me. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media as well as to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where I read 1 adult fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will be left linked down below, so go and check those out. And I hope I'll see you very soon. Bye!